Hi YouTube, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can visit me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. So today we are going to make I already made it, but I took it all apart. So we're going to put it all back together again and use the thing. We are going to make a router table for a regular Dremel tool to be able to put good looking round bottom band grooves in slingshots. Alright? Okay, so I needed a way to make a round bottom groove in the fork tips on the slingshots that I'm making, right? All the router bits that I saw at Home Depot, Lowe's, and Menards were square bottom and the wrong sizes, okay? Dremel makes a bit 192. That is a ball cutter, all right? And it's the cutter is 185 thousandths, all right, wide. Look, and it's round, so it would make a really nice round bottom groove for the bands on these the slingshots, right? The only problem was I did not have a router table to be able to turn the Dremel tool into a mini router. But I did have a spare Dremel tool. In fact, I think I've got this one, I got one over by the lathe, and then I've got one that sits on the bench, right? So I had an extra one laying around, but I didn't have a table for it. I am a huge fan of Dremel. The tools, the flex shafts, all the bits, you know, they're amazing assortment of bits. The fact that you can, you know, replace the brushes, all that kind of stuff, right? Their router table looks a little on the chintzy side to me. I have not seen one in person, but just looking at it in the pictures, I was like, man, I am not spending 50 bucks on that, right? So I got to looking at it, I'm like, well, how on earth am I going to turn that into, you know, mount that to a table? So I went through YouTube and I looked at all the ideas on there, and honestly, I didn't really see any that appealed to me all that well. So then I got to looking at it. This right here is the collar that fits on here, right? So that's the way it normally looks. So I got to looking at it and I thought, well, there's enough room in that thread. I mean, there's 4 threads there. You know, if I could clamp a piece of metal into there, then I would have a flat surface that's 90 degrees or perpendicular to the flat surface. Then I could mount that plate onto a table, and then bada bing, bada bang, and be done, right? So, take that off. The threads here measure 737 thousandths of an inch in diameter, right? Which just happens to be a little bit less than 3/4. So, grab a piece of plate steel. Okay, this is just 1/16 inch, you know, mild steel I keep around. I make my knife patterns out of this. See all the patterns for the different knives that I offer. There's those, and then there's those, and then there's still, I think I've got 2 more boxes of patterns somewhere that I haven't found since we moved the shop. So sooner or later I'll find them. So anyway, so this is just pattern steel, right? So you grab that, drill a 3/4 inch hole in it, boom. Your little collar thing, bam. Now it's flat, right? The only problem is you can't router up to that. I mean, you'd be freehanding it. So what you do is you take a board. Now you're not working with 3/4 inch anymore. You've got this collar, right? So this collar diameter is 1 inch and 78 thousandths, right? So what I ended up doing was I didn't have an 1 1/4 or an 1 1/8 spade bit, so I drilled a 1 inch hole in just a 1 by 10-ish, something like that, and then I took a pocket knife and then just rounded out, you know, kind of widened out the base, because this is not a cylinder, it's a taper, right? So now that There. Now that will nestle down nice and flat onto there, right? Now we need a way to attach this to the underside of this. So what I did was I just drilled a couple of holes. Now this, you know, this piece of scrap steel, it wasn't rectangular. You know, it doesn't really matter. So I just drilled a 1/4-inch hole in each corner while it was clamped up to this, and then recessed the heads of the bolts so that they would sit flush, which you'll see that in the next step. So now we put those onto there. Okay, grab a wrench and snug these down. I wouldn't tighten these too much because this is just a pine 1x. Okay, so those are all nice and tight, right? And that is pretty dang solid, okay? So now our next step is that this is still too tall. You know, I'll still never be able to router on that, right? So what I did was I took another board, you know, just another 1x. This right here is my fence, and we'll get to that here in a second. So I took that 1x and I clamped it all up, you know, to where it was nice and even. And then I took I think it's a number 30 drill bit, which is just a hair over a 1/8 inch drill bit. Okay, so 1/8 inch is 0.125. A number 30 is like a 0.127 or something like that, which makes a slip fit for 1/8 inch pin stock. If you don't have a number 30 drill, don't worry about it. Just use an 1/8 inch drill bit and kind of waller the hole out a little bit, and it'll fit just fine. So anyhow, so with the boards clamped together, you drill those 1/8 inch holes. Okay, then you unclamp the boards, and then you take your 1/8 inch pins, you drop them in those holes. I tapered both sides to kind of a dull point. Just kind of helps locating them a little bit easier. All right. Now what you do, now that we have this, now you could build a stand for it, you know, like an actual, you know, nice stand that you place on top of the bench. This is something that, you know, honestly, I don't think I'm going to be using it every day. I think I'll probably break it out, you know, make 30 or 50 of these slingshots, you know, take it off the bench, store it up underneath the other router table, and, you know, that'll be it. So I elected just to screw the thing to the bench. These are just pilot holes for 1 5/8 inch drywall screws, which is what I had handy. So you can't see that anymore. There. Boom. So now we are solidly attached to the bench top. Okay. Now we take that board. Actually, no, we're just going to leave that there. So we take the board and we locate our pinholes, right? And it slips down. Okay. These holes in the back are for the mounting screws. That way I can take the whole thing off and then put it all the way back on the bench without having to split this apart. Not that, you know, that really takes a whole lot of, you know, effort to be able to do. My little fence here is just a scrap piece of, I don't know, it's a scrap piece of oak, I think is what it is. And I just drilled a series of holes. We're gonna need to bring you up in here now. And let's tap that down some. I just drilled a series of holes in here. And that way you can put a drywall screw in each one of them. And if you need to move it forward or back, you know, you just unscrew them screws, and then you know, you've got plenty of time until, because every time you screw it in there, it's going to make a new hole into this, and then once it gets too holey and nasty, well, then just, you know, throw it away or use it use this board to make a pattern on another board, make the new board, put it on here, replace it, throw this one away, and you're back in business, right? Okay, so now if you can see, maybe you can't see, yeah, the way the, let's see, we got a flashlight up here. There you go. See how much stick up you've got there on that router bit? Okay, so now we can go ahead and we can make our band grooves. Let's see. First we got to plug the Dremel in. Okay, now you can still get to your controls, your on-off switch and your speed control. So I'll do this one-handed. Just grab the old safety glasses. Just double check and make sure that those are going to hit where we want. Sure enough, will. Okay, let's turn it on. Okay, so now let's set the, oh no, I guess I can keep holding you. Okay, so those are some nice looking band grooves. Those are a little bit on the shallow side though. I'm not sure. Oh, you know what? I bet you when I dropped the Dremel tool the first time I went to shoot this video, I bet you it hit and it pushed that bit in, which is okay because I can show you. Let's see. All right, so now I get to show you how to adjust your bit height, right? Okay, so you go ahead and you lift your top piece off, right? Now, on this one, it seems like this pin, the left pin always sticks in the top and the right pin always sticks in the bottom. Not that that really matters, I guess. So then, if you remember where your Dremel tool is, I suppose you could use it. I don't. So you rotate that until your, you know, the little button on your Dremel tool clicks. Loosen that up a hair. What's going on here? Ah, there we go, raise it up. Tighten it, rotate it, put your fence back on, now that's going to make too deep of a cut, and I've got a little mark right here on the shank of the cutter. It's still going to be just a hair too deep. You know, the higher the bit sticks up, the deeper the groove in there. There. I think that's going to be about right. So let's try it again. I've got something catching right there. I think it's probably that. Okay. I've got something that's catching right up in there on the second half. And right in the same spot. So I'll have to go in there and find out what's doing that. But you can tell that that's, those are some pretty nice little grooves. Yeah, the front one right there is way better. The back one where it caught something, it's got a little bit of a bobble in there, but I can tune that out. So now, like, you know, if you're interested in the slingshots, you know, now you can take yourself a chainsaw file and come up in here and kind of clean those up. And clean that little bobble up. If you want to, you can take the chainsaw file and now you can go around the outside and around the inside, or you can just leave it like that. Either way. But this is mostly a video about the router table. Okay, so a couple of things about this setup. First of all, there is a little bit of wiggle in there, right? So if you move the bottom here, you get a little bit of wiggle up there, but you don't really feel a whole lot of wiggle on the bit. Okay. Now granted, I mean, this is a Dremel tool here. Okay, so it's not like you know, it's not like you're going to be taking a 1/4 inch deep cut in you know, mild steel or something with this type of setup where you're going to have a huge lateral load or anything. Dremel tools are mostly for, you know, nice light work, and you use the speed and the bit to do whatever work it is that you're going to do, right? So it's not like you're going to put a whole lot of heavy force on this anyway, because the cuts are going to be light. So a little bitty bit of wiggle like that doesn't hurt my feelings a bit. Especially seeing as how, you know, honestly, I got about an hour in this whole setup. I mean, I've spent more just kind of learning how to use it and adjusting the bits and, you know, all that kind of stuff than I took to build the whole dang thing, right? So like I said, if you wanted to, you could go ahead and, you know, make a nice stand, you know, like a regular router table, you know, where it sits on top of the bench instead of screwing to the bench. You know, or, you know, a taller fence. Extend these out to where you could clamp the fence to the top board instead of screwing it to it. You know, it just kind of depends on how nice you want to make it and, you know, what kind of scrap you have laying around. But for, you know, free 99 scrap and less than an hour worth of time to design and build the thing, you know, it works out pretty slick. And then, like I said, the way it's set up now is that I take those two screws out, and then I unplug the thing, and then I stick it on a shelf. And then when I want to use it, I pull it back out. Screw the table back down, double check my bit height, and away you go. All right. So yeah. So again, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can visit me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. And this is my quick and dirty Dremel tool router table doohickey thingamabob. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we will see you next time.